Island Day of the Youth Climate Summit. Thank you everybody for being here. My name is Pat Keys. I'm with the New York City Department of Ed's Office of Sustainability. And I'd like to thank a few coworkers who are here on the back end helping out with things. We have our sustainability specialist, Eliza Brenman. Our director, Meredith McDermott, is going to be hopping on in a bit. And our deputy director, Thad Copeland, is here as well. And I want to make sure to give a giant thank you to our Youth Leadership Council who helped organize this event. You're going to be hearing from them actually just after I go through these logistics slides. So a couple Zoom things, captions are available. You can access them at the bottom of your screen. You should see an option that says CC live transcript. Hit the little arrow that's the little triangle there, and then hit show subtitles. If you're able to leave your camera on, please do. We really want to be able to see who's out there. It helps us build community, and yeah, it helps us all stay a little connected during the event. Please know that this event is being recorded. We'll send out a copy to everybody after the event. It will be uploaded to our YouTube page. So if there is a moment where you're speaking and you don't want to be on camera, just be sure to turn your camera off. If you could please make sure to change your Zoom name, it'd be helpful to know which school or organization you're here with. So if you're not sure how to do that, there's a little image here on the screen. Just hover your mouse over your name in the participant list on the right side of the Zoom window, and you can then click on more and then rename. If you have any comments or questions throughout the event, please use the chat. We'd love to hear from everybody. If you want to be unmuted during any of the question and answer portions, please just raise your hand and we will ask you to unmute. And we want to encourage you to, if you're on social media, please use a hashtag NYCYCS22, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever you're on. Give us a shout out. So that's it for my portion. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to the members of our Youth Leadership Council who are here today. We have Ajani Stella, and later we're going to hear from Ellery Spikes. So Ajani's a sophomore at Hunter College High School, and Ellery is a sophomore at New Explorations into Science, Technology, and Math. So Ajani, thanks for being here. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you.
Thanks, Pat. And thanks for that introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Ajani, and some of you might recognize me. I was on the panel from the opening day. So I won't spend too much time introducing myself, but as Pat said, I'm a 10th grader at Hunter College High School. I joined the Youth Leadership Council because I'm really excited about working with schools directly in achieving climate action in ways beyond just action within our green teams, how we can really interact with the school community and with our school administrators. As for a bit about me, I've been a climate activist for 5 years now, for a third of my life, and I have founded a nonprofit, Kids Fight Climate Change, based around climate education, which really speaks to why I'm interested in school climate action. So on that note, and just moving right into the summit, we wanted to share some Manhattan and Staten Island trivia with you guys, just as an icebreaker, and you'll have some polls pop up, and you'll have about 15 seconds to answer each of them. So just, yeah, get ready. The question is, what year did the Dutch first colonize what we now know as Manhattan, the homeland of the Lenape? Wow, there's definitely a lot of 1624 answers going on here. Some 1352. All right, so the majority of you did get it right. It was in 1624. And yeah, the Lenape would be violently displaced over the course of 400 years. Though it's important to recognize that Manhattan and New York City do have one of the largest integrated indigenous populations in the country. Now on to the next question. The largest landfill in the world used to be in Staten Island and is now being transformed into what park? So far, Fresh Kills Park seems to be dominating. No more for Dirty Kills. All right. Fresh Kills Park. The majority of you did get it right. It is Fresh Kills Park. Fresh Kills Park, Fresh Kills landfill was in operation from 1948 until 2001. And now the park is the largest park to be developed in New York City in over 100 years. All right, our last question. What is the East Shore Seawall? Wow, we're pretty consistent on this one. It does have its function in the name, which is helpful. It is a wall to protect Staten Island from flooding, though I sincerely wish it was a giant birdhouse. I think that would be really fun. The East Shore Seawall is a proposed resiliency and infrastructure project that will build a 5.2-mile long seawall to protect the east coast of Staten Island from coastal storms. It just really goes to remind us that while we can really work to mitigate the future effects of climate change, we have to deal with the ones that are already happening right now. All right. So just to go over the schedule quickly, 3:30 to 3:40 is what we're doing right now. We're just getting started. For the next 20 minutes, Fridays for Future is going to be talking to you guys about climate action and climate activism, especially school strikes in New York City. And they'll definitely mention the March 25th climate strike that's happening this Friday. So you should all definitely go to. Then for 20 minutes after that, the Washington Heights Expeditionary Learning School is going to be talking about their own action and activism and their work. And then we're going to move into climate action planning, like to allow your schools and your green teams to develop your climate action plans as we've been working on through this summit. And then we'll just finish up with some closing statements. Just to talk a bit about the previous summits, if you want to take a look at the opening summit, if you missed it, or any of the other boroughs' days, you can go to the link on your screen, which Eliza just pasted into the chat. Today is, as you know, Manhattan and Staten Island. This Thursday, we're going to have our Queens Summit with the Future NYC and the Queens School of Inquiry. And then we're going to have the closing day, which you guys should all come to. We're going to have some really exciting speakers and really just round out our whole day of planning. All right. If there's nothing more, I'd now like to introduce some high school activists with Fridays for Future New York City. FFF NYC is the branch of the Fridays for Future Youth Climate Action Group that began in early February 2019 by the name that we all now know, Greta Thunberg. And it has the goal of raising awareness about the climate crisis, getting New York City legislators to listen to science and do everything in our power to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Amina, Henry, Regina, and Sarah, thank you so much for being here. Take it away.
Hi, so we're just going to start off with 2 icebreakers, which you can answer in the chat. So the first question is, 1, have you heard of Fridays for Future before? And if you have, just answer in the chat. And 2, are you interested in organizing your school for Fridays for Future, or have you organized it before, represented your school? Just answer in the chat and we'll start with our introductions. I'm Sora. I go by she, her pronouns. I'm a junior in high school. I've been in Fridays for Future for 2 months now. I'm a part of the social media team, the policy team, the onboarding team, and I'm currently starting up the Fridays for Future New York City e-newspaper. Amina?
Hi guys, I'm Amina. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior at Beacon High School. I started organizing with Fridays for Future this past summer, so this will be the 2nd strike I'm working on. But before that, I worked a lot with middle school green teams. I actually worked with the Queens School of Inquiry, which we'll present tomorrow, so that's exciting. And I was also part of the DOE YLC before, so I'm glad to see that it's still going strong. And I'll pass it to Regina.
Hi everyone, my name is Regina. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a junior at Horace Greeley High School. I got involved with Fridays for Future after the last strike in September. It's been awesome to work with them. They're an amazing organization, and I do a lot of work in my community. At my school, I'm the leader of a sustainability club, and yeah, Henry.
Hey everyone, I'm Henry. I use he, him pronouns. I am actually a freshman at the new school, University in Union Square. And I've been with Fridays for Future since September of 2021, post September 24th climate strike. Yeah, I'm really excited to be organizing with Fridays for Future.
Great. So I see in the chat a lot of people have maybe heard of us before, but don't really know exactly what we do. So that's what I'm going to kind of go over now. So the main thing we do is we plan strikes. So there are usually 2 big ones a year, and they're international strikes. So there was one September 24th, and there's actually one this Friday, the 25th at Borough Hall, and we'll go more into that later. But so that involves a lot of organizing the city, our individual schools, teachers, going around and flyering, which we did this past weekend. And those, we hope to get at least like a few thousand students and people there for each strike. And then we also have weekly City Hall protests. Those happen at 4 p.m. outside City Hall in Manhattan. And those tend to be smaller, and they're more targeted towards like our different policy demands and kind of carrying on the tradition of striking every Friday. We also do a lot of collaboration and support with other organizations in New York City and in New York State. So we have 3 main policy demands for the September 25th, the March 25th strike. And one of our big demands is our state demand is to pass the Climate Can't Wait bill package. And that involves a lot of other organizations like New York Renews and Sunrise, which I'm sure you guys have all heard of. So we'd love to work with them, and they always come to our strike, and we support them with their other actions as well. And then we also strategize policy to target elected officials, which is something we kind of started doing more this year. I'm co-lead of the policy working group. So we worked a lot this time of how do we strategize for our main policy goals, and then how are we gonna kind of combine all of those into actions that you all can take at our strike this Friday. So our 3 policy demands, our local demand is to stop the Brooklyn pipeline, which we can put more information in the chat if you guys would like. Our state demand is to pass the Climate Can't Wait bill package. Highly suggest you look it up. It's a package of different climate policy bills that a lot of New York State organizations are working to get passed. And then our national demand is to pass the Green New Deal for Public Schools Act. And then lastly, we have working groups. So as I mentioned before, I'm co-lead of the policy working group. And a lot of that looked like brainstorming what are like the 3 main demands we have for this strike, and how can we make those clear and specific, and then how do we structure those demands into actions that students can take at the strike. And I'll pass it to Sora now.
So one of the working groups that we have is Antiracism. Antiracism is in a working group where we discuss and discover the best ways in which we can make sure that everyone in Fridays for Future New York City feels validated and has a seat at the table. So it's a healthy and a welcoming place to voice your ideas and your opinions. We also work to make sure that we focus on environmental injustice and issues that take place in less climate represented areas and lower income communities in New York City to ensure that our response to the climate crisis is not limited to those who have the platform to talk about environment and to advocate for the environment. We also want to make sure that all members feel comfortable and have a place to state if they're uncomfortable in any way. The climate movement is typically white dominated, and Fridays for Future New York City is working to break down that barrier by being anti-racist and more inclusive to everyone and welcoming to everyone. So it's a very, very important working group to us. And it's a great place for new members to join. It's great to get to know other people and to learn more about what Fridays for Future is. So I'll pass it on to Rahina.
So I am working a lot in social media working group, and it's a really great place where we get together and collaborate, obviously on our social media platforms. We put a lot of energy into our Instagram account, and we're starting up a TikTok account. And so it's really fun because we get to use our creativity in creating new content that people will enjoy and that people will learn we're trying to get more educational content out there, whether that's from fast fashion to US carbon emissions. So we're trying to spread awareness and then also spread our platform and our mission and our goal. We always post a reminder about our weekly Friday strikes at City Hall, so that more people can come if they are able. And yes, Henry?
Yeah, so one of our major, the overall group that we have is our general group with Fridays for Future. So that means every Tuesday for about an hour and a half from 6 to 7:30 p.m. we have our general call. And what that is for everyone to come together, whether you're in a working group or whether you're just a general member, to come together to ask questions, to give updates on what your working group is working on or what they're doing, what they've accomplished. And so that really is open to everyone. We also have a Slack channel, and Slack is a platform where it's a virtual platform to connect with one another when we're offline, when we're not working on Zoom together. And in the general Slack, there's also our working groups are also broken up into channels on Slack. So you can get involved through there. If you're confused with anything, just ask it in the general chat, and someone will answer, someone will help you get involved. So that is kind of a little overview of what the general working group is.
If you press next, it should pop up. There we go.
Okay, so every Friday from 4 to 6 p.m., like I said, we are at City Hall striking and voicing our demands and using kind of our voices to pressure our government officials to take action on the climate crisis. And so we would love for you to get involved that way. If you are looking for kind of an entryway into FFF, that's great. You can meet people in person, and yeah, it's fun to get together and kind of use your voices together. Another way, which is a great way that you can get involved, is to become a school representative and represent your school. This is extremely important, especially when we have a global strike coming up, like the one this Friday. And so pretty much you organize your school and push for more people to attend. And that is a super important part of Fridays for Future.
So a third part and way you can get involved is through our weekly meetings. So like I mentioned previously, every Tuesday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. we have a weekly call where everyone in the organization is welcome. We also have outside guests that are more than welcome to participate if you just want to see what's going on within Fridays for Future, and maybe you're not sure whether you want to completely join, but you're interested to see what we do, you're more than welcome to attend those weekly meetings. And that is a lot of that has to do with just an information session of what we do. And then the fourth way of the ones we've listed, there's so many other ways to get involved as well besides these 4 points, but the fourth one that we have listed here is our art builds. And so what an art build is typically we usually have 1 or 2 right before each climate strike. That is our global climate strikes that we participate in, where we make signs for our next strike. We also paint the banner and create the banner that we hold at the front. And a lot of that is posted on our social media with a lot more details. Sora, you can finish.
So just going to elaborate on that, we as FFF NYC try to incorporate creativity into our work because we know that not everyone has the time to plan strikes or come to meetings. So as Henry said, we have the art builds. Just recently, we closed the submissions for a writing contest. The winner was announced today, SL Frangiola from LaGuardia High School. So that's a great way to get involved. We're hoping to do more writing contests in the future. And we're also almost done setting up an e-newspaper on the website, which will be open to art, photography, and writing submissions from the public so that people can express their creativity and further spread the word of Fridays for Future New York City and the climate movement. So we're hoping that students in New York City will help us with the creative section as well as the logistical section of Fridays for Future.
And lastly, so we want to open it up a bit more broadly to all of you, because this is why we're here today for you. And we want to open up to any questions, comments you might have, or anything that wasn't raised or that you have a question in your head about. You're more than welcome to ask that right now. Feel free to use the raise hand feature in Zoom, or if you're not comfortable speaking vocally, you're more than welcome to put it in the chat and we'll answer it there. Mina, do you want to answer the one about bills and policies?
I can also answer the one about the Brooklyn pipeline. Hold on, let me just get it up here. The best way to locate bills and policies under discussion at the city council. So the city council website, if you look up city council legislation, they should be up there for discussion, is what we usually use. We also kind of, like I said, we collaborate a lot with different organizations. So usually I find that organizations that are really advocating for a certain bill, we'll have them up on their website and have more of like a broader, clear like definition outlining of like what exactly it is and how it connects to a community. If there's a certain bill you're looking for, you can put it in the chat and I can let you know like which organization might be involved with that. In terms of the Brooklyn pipeline, I'm totally happy to send more resources on that because we actually had someone from the No Brooklyn Pipeline organization come to our last meeting to kind of explain it to us. But basically, it's a really harmful pipeline that goes through Brooklyn, and 3/4 of it was already built, even though there was a lot of community advocacy against it, and there was a lot of publicity about it, but it was still built anyways. But right now, we're trying to advocate for the last quarter of it to not be built, and then we're also advocating towards the governor and the mayor to not let the company have vaporizers as well. So the ending date for that is in May, I believe. And so we're at the strike, we're going to have everyone tweet and write at the mayor and the governor to not let that happen, because that would also be very harmful to people just in terms of like the air quality. And also if the pipeline were to explode or something were to happen, the actual like liquid and oil inside the pipeline would be like detrimental to the community around it. So it's really dangerous and harmful to the environment and people around it.
I can answer the question about the links. On the Instagram, a few of us are in charge of the DMs. And if you just send a DM and ask for the link to the weekly meeting, we'll send it right over to you. So yeah, you can do that. Does anyone want to get that, or should I do it? Okay. So how does
I
I'm
think what
not
it's asking, Thora, I think
yeah.
it's like, how does the city of New York work and collaborate within the Fridays for Future network, and how how do other cities, I guess, work and collaborate with other Fridays for Futures chapters? Yeah, I mean, pretty much, like we were mentioning within our policy group within the policy working group that I would say is probably the closest working connections and collaborations we have with the New York City government. And that would probably, I'd imagine, is the same for other chapters like Boston and Washington, D.C. They probably work with their local city councils. So that is probably, to answer it best, that's the closest way we work in collaboration with the New York City government, is through policy and legislation that is brought to the floor in the city council. And same really goes for the New York State government, the New York State legislature, as well as US Congress, by reaching out to our representatives, setting up meetings with them, and doing everything we can to persuade them. And yes, there are national and international planning meetings when it comes around to the global climate strikes. So there is Fridays for Future USA, which is the national chapter that covers all of the local chapters in the US. And there's also, of course, the international working group, you could call it. And that is where different countries come together before the climate strikes, and they plan out and talk about what each city, local chapter, what each state or each country is doing in regards to the global climate strike.
I can elaborate on that. We are in contact with the Washington, D.C. Fridays for Future group. We've discussed ideas with them. Also, a member from Fridays for Future Dresden in Germany came to New York City and spoke to a few of us. So there's a lot of communication between the international and the national Fridays for Future groups, but there aren't any set meetings, but their meetings do happen when they are requested or anything of the sort.
I actually have one question too. What are some, I was particularly interested by the anti-racism strategies in diversifying the movement. What are some of these strategies that you found effective in your work here?
So recently we've been reaching out to organizations that are in climate organizations that are based in lower income communities, as well as in less represented communities. So East River, Save East, I forgot exactly what the movement's called, but there in East River Park, the trees and everything was being completely demolished so that they can create some sort of flood prevention park on top of it. The issue was it was damaging the environment around it during construction, and the people in the area were protesting against it for a while. So they came to us and we organized a collaboration so that we can use our platform, which tends to be, as a Fridays for Future is a white dominated organization currently, but we have that platform. So we used it to amplify their voice. And we constantly hope to find more people, more organizations that don't have the platform to come to us. But that's in collaboration with other organizations. Within Fridays for Future, we have active meetings where we discuss and we ask if anyone is uncomfortable, especially in the anti-racism working group. There are, instances where people feel like their voices aren't being heard, or they feel like they haven't gotten opportunities, whether it's because of their race or their gender or sexuality, whatever it is. If they feel like they haven't gotten the representation they deserve, there is a very healthy and open space, and there are people that they can come to talk to. Personally, I joined Fridays for Future 2 months ago, and immediately I felt very comfortable and welcomed, and I knew that there was a space for me to express if I was uncomfortable, if I feel like I wasn't being heard. But thankfully, Fridays for Future New York City has established a non-hierarchical system where people feel like they can come forward and talk without being shut down or disregarded.
I think going off of that, and then Regina, I'll have you share. But yeah, I mean, going off that, about we don't have a hierarchical system within Fridays for Future. That's really important to point out, that here at Fridays for Future, everyone that is in the organization is equal. No one is above anyone else. And we don't have any executive planning or planners within the organization. We come to decisions and conclusions as a collective, where no one's voice should be left out. And if they are, then that is an error on our behalf, and we will do our best to correct that. And another part I would like to mention, among the anti-racist working group, is, like Sora was mentioning, we are working to reach out to other organizations outside of our sphere, other climate movements, other climate organizations, as well as anti-racist organizations that are doing work specifically combating anti-racism, or excuse me, combating racism within the climate movement. So one of those is called Surge, Standing Up for Racial Justice. And Surge has anti-racist 101 trainings, which we are working to bring into Fridays for Future New York. Currently, we are in touch with them. So figure out a way to bring that and incorporate that into Fridays for Future is really important, because that is one step, is through education to break down the racist systems and institutions that we have that dominate the climate movement.
Thank you so much for that. That really clarifies a lot for me. Just looking at the time, I do want to end questions here. Amina, I know there was one last thing you wanted to say, and then after that we can move along.
Yeah, so the biggest push right now is come to our Friday strike. You can go on our Instagram, our website to find out more details, but the basic overview is the school walkout is at noon, and then the strike will begin at Borough Hall in downtown Brooklyn at 1:30 p.m. We're going to walk over the Brooklyn Bridge and then end in Foley Square in downtown Manhattan. Please, please, please organize your school, bring people. If you're having difficulty organizing, spreading the word, DM us, reach out to us. Feel free to use any of the graphics we posted. A lot of schools have made strike accounts, so if you want to do that, that would be really helpful. And use any of the graphics that they posted with our demands, with a walkout sticker people can put on their story. This is the final last few days, so we need everyone to help. And thank you so much for having us.
Awesome, thanks so much. I'm excited to be there. I'll be leading my school there as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Fridays for Future. I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did too. Moving along, I wanted to invite the Wheels School to talk more about their work, and Wheels stands for Washington Heights Expeditionary Learning School, to talk about their work. And yeah, take it away.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Cool. Can everybody see my screen? Great.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the Office of Sustainability and the Youth Climate Summit.
Okay, go.
And
Go for it.
good afternoon, and thank you to the Office of Sustainability and the Youth Climate Summit for having us today. My name is Elly, and I'm in 11th grade at Wheels and Expeditionary.
My name is Enterprise, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm in the 12th grade, Wheels class of 2022.
So for today's meeting, we want to talk to you with you all about our project, the Clean Air Green Corridor, and how we want our streets and our environment to be a safe space and a healthy community. We'll share with you all the work we have done so far, our vision for our work.
Hey, Angel and Yerlin, we're having a hard time hearing you. If you could speak a little louder, that would be great.
So for today's meeting, we want to talk to you with you all about our project, the Clean Air Green Corridor, and how we want our streets and our environment to be a safe space and a healthy community. We will share with you all the work we have done so far, our vision for our work.
This past November, we conducted an environmental justice field survey on 182nd Street. The block by block, we identified and recorded all the different hazards we saw. At the same time, the 12th grade environmental science class also went outside to collect photographs, videos, and audios of the hazards on 182nd Street. Here was a collection of what we saw. The first thing we saw was a lot of double parked cars and traffic during the school day. Second thing we saw was an overflow of garbage cans, and in some of the blocks, missing trash cans. Even on our way to school in the morning, we see needles and orange caps on the sidewalk and inside tree beds. The fourth thing we see is an empty tree pit where there could be trees. We also noticed that on some blocks, specifically near St. Nicholas, there aren't a lot of trees, which concerns us since this block has a lot of street vendors and people. Lastly, in front of wheels, there was a lack of open and public spaces for students, teachers, and staff. Instead, we see cars take up the space in the street. We need access to open spaces just like Yeshiva University. This is important to us because real students who have off-campus lunch have no proper place to eat their meals or hang out. Thank you. Now I'll pass it to you, Lynn.
Clean Air Green Corridor started back in 2017 with the help of two other teachers, Dr. Fox and Mr. Esmond. It ran a week-long class called Restoring High Bridge, where students learned about green spaces in our neighborhood and the systematic barriers to accessing these green spaces. That class helped inspire our big vision of 182nd Street. A big vision is to transform all of 182nd Street from the grand staircase of High Bridge Park on Laurel Hill Terrace to Broadway into a walkable green corridor without cars so our students, teachers, and neighbors in our community can enjoy a safe, clean, and healthy environment. We want our students and their families from all 6 schools on 182nd Street to be a part of this space and be able to use the street however they want with their family and friends. So the work we have done so far, we have done with the students with the Clean Green Corridor, you can see on the slide, is that 1, the environmental justice education, and that is like for the last 2 years and counting, 12th grade environmental science includes environmental justice as part of what students learn. 2, community science. This past summer, students in the urban ecology research internship with Future NYC, Columbia University, and the New York Restoration Project. We collected data in the High Bridge Park and Sherman Creek. This research we did looked at the impacts of invasion species of understory diversity, the impacts of soil conditions on plant diversity, and how pollution combined sewer overflow affects lower levels of bacteria in our Highland River. The third would be stewardship. To after school with Mr. Esmond every Tuesday since September, a group of us go outside to keep our streets clean. 4 would be the street activation. Futures Ignite also has been able to put together 2 block parties in front of our school to model an open street for students and teachers to use. It's been an exciting opportunity to show how we reclaim streets and sidewalks back for people. The 5th one would be that advocacy. Now we are focusing on meeting with our policy makers of Washington Heights to create a systematic change. Last month we met our council member, Carmen de la Rosa, and spoke with her and her team about our work and ways we could support about our work moving forward. Thank you. Now I'll pass it to Angel.
Now I will be talking about our short-term vision for the Clean Air Green Corridor. We want to take this, our school block, from Amsterdam Avenue to Audubon Avenue and turn it into a plaza. For a short-term goal, we applied for the 2022 Department of Transportation's open street programs that will temporarily close 182nd Street from Amsterdam Avenue to Audubon Avenue. With their short-term goal, we want to create an opportunity for an open and green space for our community to come together, especially members of the Wheels community, to break the cycle of generational poverty and build a safe and beautiful place in Washington Heights. We believe that through this first step, we can begin to address some of the issues we have seen on 182nd Street. Here's what students have envisioned what an open street in front of Wheels can look like. We made this rendering with the help of our community partner, Hester Street. These are photos we got from other open streets throughout New York City. The examples we highlight in this slide are some of the success stories of open streets that have been used for outdoor learning for New York City students and places for young people to hang out in. And we know that we can implement a similar model here at Wheels and soon to the other schools on 182nd Street. We believe that all young people, regardless of their zip code or social and economic circumstances, should be able to go to school in a healthy and green community. We know that our model for a clean air, green corridor, and environmental justice is possible for other schools throughout New York City. And we believe that it is up to young people like the ones on Zoom called to make it happen. We want other young people throughout New York City to learn about our work and realize they can do the same for their schools and their communities and inspire change. Thank you for listening to our presentation. We will now open the floor for any comments or questions you may have.
One question I had, and while I'm talking, people can ask others or drop them in the chat. How do you think that government investment can play a role in achieving climate justice in disenfranchised schools or communities? And in what ways is said investment best spent?
I think with things such as during the COVID, they had lowered the sanitation prices and the sanitation budget. I think that with a lot of government funding, and I think that with more money, sanitation obviously can be well funded and clean and do their job in a better and sufficient way of cleaning and keeping us a cleaner environment, because with that lack of resources, more trash and more rodents then cause a bigger problem in the environment.
Great, thank you. I see one question in the chat. What strategies have you used to get your peers at school to take care and to care and to be involved?
One of the things, would you like to take this question, Steph?
Well, we would actually be able to go outside and like take out trash that we see around like our neighborhood. So
yeah, I think to add on to that, I know that for the senior class especially, we had mentioned earlier in the presentation that the class talks about things like this, and we also have spread awareness that this club exists in general, and that to formulate ways and tactics to hold themselves accountable, their community, and just the school as well, to hold them accountable and how to create a cleaner environment.
Awesome, thank you. We have one compliment from the East Side Community High School. I believe that you're, oops, it disappeared. I believe that you're that you're as well with bringing your community together. Admire the way that you even had students in mind when theorizing such an environment. So thank you for your great work. One more question we have here. How have you engaged your neighborhood community members and local organizations in this effort to make it more of a community outreach, community program?
There's actually two ways that we've been able to implement that. One of them was speaking with our government official, Carmen de la Rosa, and have her to back us up with this plan. And second, it was also a survey that we had formulated to ask local vendors, local businesses, and local people who live here locally, also people who work and commute here, to see what are their opinions on how safe the neighborhood is, how we can implement their needs to the environment, whether it being safety, environmentally, or socially, and et cetera, et cetera.
Great, thank you. Were the open streets events and photos you used as an inspiration also in your neighborhood, or were the images from other neighborhoods?
No, they're not from this neighborhood. They're from other ones.
Cool.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have? Oh, sorry, I missed a question up here, I think. How does creating a green corridor help air quality?
Within doing that, creating a clean corridor, a green corridor, sorry, it causes for less traffic and less driving, because obviously, as you know, when you're driving, all the carbon fuels that are released into the air creates for a dirty environment. So then with having that block down, that causes less cars to drive through and more people to commute walking, which is better.
Great, thanks. One more question from the East Side Community High School. How do you plan on changing the open space with ideas from your own community as well? For instance, have you had any outside influence into your idea of an open school? Or like, is it from not just your school, or is it your original idea?
We're planning on starting here first, and then since there are other schools on this block as well, we've tried to implement and talk to them as well. But to answer your question, again, we're starting here, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, expand.
I think it might be that's really great. I really appreciate that you're doing that. Just to follow up on that, how have you been influenced from other green corridor programs? How did you come up with this idea?
Oh, I'll take that. Basically, like we said in the presentation, we had first started as kind of like a small group with 2 other teachers. This was way before my time. So they first started out with just talking about how we can keep the environment safe of Washington Heights, how we can keep it safer. Then from there, it expanded into a club, and then within more and more people joining the club, it expanded then to this idea.
All right, I think looking at the time, this is our final question. Pat says he loves the map that you showed with the other schools in your neighborhood. Are you working with those schools like TEP? I think you mentioned that you're hoping to work with them. Can you just elaborate a bit more on that process?
As previously mentioned before, the survey that we have right now is also going to help schools to then further implement that.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much thank you all of you for talking to us. I'm really excited to see how your program grows. I think it's a really great initiative, and I love the effect that it's had on your neighborhood and your school. And as Pat says, yes, we do love surveys. Thank you again to all of our speakers today with Fridays for Future and Wheels. Please make a nice comment or put an emoji in the chat or a reaction in your corner for them. I'm now going to turn things over to my fellow Youth Leadership Council member, Elly Spikes, who's going to be talking to you about climate action planning for the rest of the summit. Thanks so much, guys.
Hi, everyone. And yes, thank you so much to Fridays for Future and Wheels. Your presentations were amazing, and just the projects you're doing, they're very inspiring. Yeah, my name is Ellery. I'm a sophomore at Nesplesum High School, and I joined the DOE Youth Leadership Council mostly to engage with sustainability in our public schools. That's a really important component that's often missing when we hear about climate action, and then to bring environmental justice topics to more students, and especially through climate education, as we're doing today. So now we're going to be diving back into the climate action planning, which we started at the opening day of the summit. And just a reminder, the climate action planning is a really important part of the summit every year. It's a chance to identify areas for climate action at your own school and then to take initiative based on that. And so for inspiration, in the past, some other schools have completed energy audits to reduce energy usage at their school, contacted local elected officials to resume organics or compost collection, or partnered with nearby sustainability organizations on environmental justice campaigns. So between the start of the summit on March 10th and today, we took photos from around our school and then uploaded them to a photo survey. And then this week, we'll actually be looking at that data and identifying one climate issue at our school that we can tackle and the overall goal that we want to address for that issue. And then looking ahead, during the final week of the summit on March 31st, we'll build out actionable steps that our school groups can take until the remainder of the school year and beyond to address that issue. So as we're thinking about the climate action plan, keep in the back of your mind everything we heard from the wonderful speakers today, but then also last week. And if you weren't here last week, we heard about the importance of climate education, eco art, climate activism, but then we also heard from students with New York City Votes about the importance of youth voting. Today, of course, we heard from Fridays for Future and Wheels. So all of that's really important when we're thinking about our school climate action plans. So now this is kind of the tricky part with a lot of steps, but using a laptop or tablet, not a phone, that's really important. You'll go to the website, which was just put into the chat for everyone. And so now we're going to be taking a look at the survey results from week 1. I'll give everyone a moment. So open that link up. And so as you can see on the landing page, we see all of the participating schools' entries. It's a lot of wonderful data. And it's amazing to see how many photos everyone's captured. So I'll pause right here. So in the chat, you can quickly just rate any types of photos or themes that you're kind of seeing as Pat is just scrolling through the photos. See a lot of posters, waste bins, food, climate strike posters, energy, yeah, lots of different things. Recycle theme, yeah. So now it's a good chance to move on to looking just at the borough of Manhattan and Staten Island. So to do this, you'll click on the filter tab at the top of the page, yeah, right there. And then where it says your first name, adjust the drop-down option to select the borough of your school. So Manhattan or Staten Island. Yep. And then in the box next to the value box, you'll select your borough and then click apply at the top of the page or at the bottom of the page. And we'll give everyone a moment to do that. That's a lot of steps. And if at any point you have questions or you missed something, just drop in the chat and I can repeat it. Okay. Now you'll delete that filter by using the trash icon on the lower left corner, so opposite to the apply button. And now you'll narrow down to just your school's results. And I'll pause right here for a few minutes to let everyone get to that point. And again, just drop any questions you have into the chat. So you'll pick Manhattan, where it says your first name. And then once you do that, you can select your school. And all of them should be listed. You'll click on your school. And then back down to the apply button and click that. And now it will narrow down the searches to everything, all of the photos that people from your school have submitted. And you can see that the survey is broken into kind of 3 themes. It's the photos, and then it's labels of what the photos represent that everyone inputted. And then lastly, some common words that were used, like we see here, students, school, trash, green, poster, bins, cafeteria. So that's how you should kind of get narrow down from all of the schools to your school specifically. And that was a lot of steps. So again, please drop any questions you have into the chat about that. What do we do after adding our school? That's a good question. So you will, after adding your school, we're going to be taking a look at all of that data. That's the next part we're about to get to. But just kind of scroll through and observe some themes. And just what you notice. You probably haven't seen these photos before because everyone submitted them. So, yeah. So as you're scrolling through, what categories seem to be the most popular for your school? Or even if you zoomed back out for all of the schools in general, are you seeing any terms pop up again? Environmental justice, media communication, posters, things like that. And you can drop that into the chat, some common themes you're seeing. Green space, climate and waste. Yeah, and then on the flip side of that, what categories are least common or you're not seeing? And then is that surprising you at all, or is it what you expected? The infrastructure category is the most common. That's a good observation. So again, which ones are the least common? That also might point towards what your school is doing well or what people might not have focused on. Not much about arts and fashion. Yeah, that's a common theme. Advice to be more environmentally friendly and sustainable. Yeah. Okay, so that was just a sneak peek into the survey. And now the next step for everyone is to navigate this climate action plan document, which you can see on the board, and it's just been put into the chat. So open that up and you'll use this document to frame your conversation for this week about our climate action plans and for the last week of the summit too. So it contains a lot of helpful information. And also if you missed any of the steps on how to narrow down to your school, or you want to review that, it's all in that document as well. And one thing we recommend doing is making a copy so that you're able to edit that. And if you don't know how to, you should go to the file button at the top of the Google document and then click make a copy. And then that will give you the chance to edit. And of course, if you're with others from your school, you can share that with them. That's the document we're talking about. So please take a few minutes to do that. And of course, you don't have to use this document to capture all of your notes. It's meant to be a guide, and it has helpful prompts and things like that that will be a great resource. But as I said, drawings, shared Google Docs, or an Excel spreadsheet are all fine too. Should I do that for our school? Yeah, so each person will just make a copy, and then we'll figure out how we're going to use that as different members of different schools. So we'll give everyone a few minutes to do that. Okay, so now we're going to spend about 20 minutes looking through our photo survey results and then working through the week 2 of the climate action plan document with our own schools. So if you scroll through the document, you should see that section which we just mentioned. So if your school group is in person, that's wonderful. It might make it a little bit easier to collaborate on this, but if not, and if you're online, we'll be opening up breakout rooms, which each school should be able to join. And then we'll come back in about 20 minutes at 4:55 to review our survey results and just the common themes and things like that. And again, if anyone has any other questions about this whole process, which I just explained, or your climate action plan, we'll be here in the main room. Okay, I think everyone should be back. I hope you had a good time in the breakout rooms, kind of discussing the survey results. So with that, yeah, what sustainability categories did you notice which ones were the most relevant to your school? This obviously varies depending on your school and your school community. But you can drop that into the chat. Really, anything you noticed, anything that's that you're thinking about. For my school, it was a lot of infrastructure and environmental justice and energy. I don't know if anyone else had common themes. Maybe it's something totally different. But yeah, please drop that into the chat because we didn't get a chance to look at each school individually. Kind of just funneled right into our schools. So. Yeah, and a follow-up question to that, kind of where this all is heading, is if you got this far, what did you decide on as your issue and goal at your school? And maybe it's even, you didn't choose something concrete yet, but what are you leaning towards at your school community? And you can also raise your hand for this if you want to speak out loud, or just drop it into the chat. Either way is fine. And it would be nice to hear from each school really quickly, something that each school found. Yeah, infrastructure and environmental justice, as we said. Does anyone else want to add anything from their school? And yeah, as we said, it's totally okay if you don't have your concrete idea yet, but just kind of where your head is in terms of the issues that you looked into and where you think you could put your energy into trying to solve that issue at your school. Oh, the most important category were green space and gardening. Oh, an issue we have less is access to open spaces. Yeah, those are great observations. And as we said, it depends on the school. Each school is in a different community, and that makes for different circumstances. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, so this was kind of just the beginning with your climate action plan. This document has a lot of good prompts that can kind of inspire discussions beyond just the summit today. And so you're encouraged to tweak your plan over the next couple of weeks. And again, we'll be meeting back on the 31st, which everyone should come to because it's the closing day of the summit. And on that day, we'll be building out specific action steps that we can use to implement our climate action plan into our school for this year and beyond. And in between, also check out the Office of Sustainability's resource portal. It has a lot of great resources that the YLC put together, including just information on climate and environmental justice topics that might be relevant. The summit schedule, even for next week, it's focused on careers, which is really exciting. And you'll be hearing from people in the field, and then also just resources and general grants, organizations to contact, upcoming youth program applications and events. And there's a lot of those. And then lastly, and this is really important, and you might have been here last week to do this, or if not, but if students, you could drop or write your email, I'm pretty sure it's the email and just your name and the school you go to, into the form that's was just dropped into the chat, which our YLC will be using to contact everyone after the summit ends for updates. And like we said, all those resources that are constantly changing, and we're always looking out for those. So yeah, please take I think 30 seconds just to quickly fill that out, and then we'll be able to contact everyone after the summit. And of course, you can also invite any friends who may not have been able to come to the summit today, but who are interested and are still from your school, to fill that out as well. And yeah, thank you so much for coming, everyone. We heard from amazing speakers from Fridays for Future and Wheels. And hopefully that got especially with Wheels in terms of a specific community-based project in your school community, hopefully that got you thinking about what your school could do. And so this Thursday, hopefully you're able to make it to the Queen's Summit session. It will be a lot like today, just focused on Queens and their action plan and other organizations. But anyone is welcome to join, even if your school is not located in Queens. And then lastly, you can definitely join us for the finale of the summit on Thursday, March 31st, which I believe is 2 weeks away. Oh, sorry, it's a week and a half away. But yes, thank you so much for coming, everyone. We're ending right at 5 o'clock, which is good. And yeah, be sure to develop your climate action plans between now and then. We'll be working on them there too. But yes, thank you so much for coming, everyone, and have a great evening.